Golly, I sure do look handsome in this reflective surface, even if the curvature of it does make my forehead look a bit like that of Jack's films. Oh, hey, didn't notice you there, even though I set up the camera myself. I'm just taking a look at my silver play button, which I got from YouTube for reaching 100,000 subscribers. That is a whole lot of subscribers, and also it has been a whole lot of months since I put in my order to get this thing, so I should probably get around to doing my 100,000 subscribers special at some point before I reach 200,000, which is like next month. Oh god, what have I done? Anyway, as the world's premier expert on anime openings, I realized that there was no more fitting special for me to do than to run down the definitive top 10 best anime openings of all time. Well, kind of. There are so many openings out there, and so many excellent ones at that condensing them all into an itemized list is basically impossible, at least if I also want to represent the immense range of OPs out there. So I've taken a page out of Cinefix's book, because that channel does the best lists on YouTube, period, and broken all of the great OPs I could think of into broad categories. And then I picked the OP in each category that was my absolute favorite, with the caveat that I had to be able to think of something about each OP that is unequivocally spectacular and justifies its placement on the list. Maybe I'm over-explaining. There are so many different ways that anime can draw us in. Here are some of them on a list. They're the best. Let's do this. I almost exclusively talk about visuals and direction on what's in an OP, and to me they're far and away the most important part of what makes an OP good. If I like the song but the visuals are crap, why would I watch it instead of just listening to it on my iPod or my Google Pixel phone, which I have now, because Apple makes inferior technology. But there are times when the song elevates the other aspects of the OP. The direction may be solid, but the music is so perfect, and the visuals so perfectly suited to it that it steals the show. Number 10 is the best example of that. Log Horizon's Database or Gotta Catch 'Em All from Pokemon might come to mind when I say that, and those songs are bangin', but I'm still looking for stuff that brings some interesting visual ideas to the table. Think more along the lines of The World God Only Knows, Persona 4 the Animation, Ghost in the Shell, or Death Parade. OPs that are good on their own, but have music that just overwhelms you. But beyond that, think of themes that have become iconic, like Butterfly from Digimon, Chala Head Chala from Dragon Ball Z, Tokyo Koete from Zeta Gundam, Colors from Code Geass, Sorairo Days from Gurren Lagann, or half of the things Jam Project has done. There are a ton of anime themes out there that you just can't get out of your head. But above all of them is a song that my brother-in-law, a professional music critic who doesn't watch anime at all, describes as one of the most perfect pop compositions he's ever heard. That song is A Cruel Angel's Thesis, the opening of Neon Genesis Evangelion. Let me be clear, the visuals in this OP are strong. It was a pioneer of information overload as a stylistic choice, packing in so many different images in time with the fast-paced music that it's impossible to track them all. A lot of it's plot important, a lot of it's just there to fill space, but what really matters is that it matches the tempo and energy of the song. And man, does this song have energy to spare. It runs a gamut of emotions, starting with a slow, weighty, awe-inspiring choral build-up before launching into an intriguing, melancholic midsection, and capping it off with an explosion of excitement and action. You can tell that the composer, the singer, and everyone else involved poured their hearts and souls into producing it. Evangelion is one of the OPs that I get the most requests to cover, and it's plain to see and hear why. Hideaki Anno's opus changed the face of anime, and A Cruel Angel's Thesis is as important a piece of its legacy as any of the myriad big ideas that it introduced to the world of anime. The bread and butter of my channel is talking about the symbolism and hidden meaning in OPs. If I have one bias, it's toward information density, but there's something to be said for simple pleasures, and there are few pleasures simpler than the joy of a good laugh, and that's what our number 9 pick aims to deliver. There are plenty of tough contenders for this crown. Nichijo's OPs are, of course, packed to the brim with fantastic gags and references, as are Jun from Cromartie High School and Super Affection from Carnival Phantasm. You see OPs that set up more standalone jokes in front of shows like Konosuba, Osomatsu-san, Dokuro-chan, and Gugure Kokuri-san. There are OPs that revel in the surreal, like Boku ni Invitation from Polar Bear Cafe, and ones that elicit laughs by tackling silly subject matter with po-faced seriousness, like Cold Finger Girl from Level E, or the intro to Golden Boy. And of course, we can't forget OPs with hilarious high concepts, like Desert Punk's goofy tokusatsu intro, Hozuki no Reitetsu's stirring national anthem for Hell, or the recursive intro to Tonari no Seki-kun, which depicts its own creation on Seki-kun's desk in the middle of class. Genius. I could go on and on and on. There are so many great anime comedies out there with equally hilarious OPs, but I don't have to because this is one of the few categories here with a very clear winner. You can't talk about anime comedy without talking about Gintama, and all things being equal, there would be a lot of strong contenders from that series alone on this list. But Gintama did something special, something that only it could get away with, that pushes its 9th OP, Tougenkyou Alien, well over the top. The OP is packed with hilarious imagery, with a ton of one-off gags building into a colossal chase scene featuring the bulk of the show's massive cast. It also highlights a bit of the action and drama that's allowed Gintama to be so enduring as a series, and to constantly subvert audience expectations throughout its run. Still, all of that's par for the course, and on its own wouldn't be all that special, but the essence of comedy is surprise, and this OP delivered 2 great ones over the course of the 26 episodes that used it. It was pretty funny when the Sket Dance characters hijacked it for their crossover, but the biggest surprise, and one of the biggest laughs I've ever had watching an anime, came when they fucked it up. After sticking the landing on this OP 22 times in a row, Gintoki and friends slide into place for their group shot once again, only to crash and get seriously injured. And while that's funny enough on its own conceptually, the dialogue that follows about how embarrassed they are really sells it. This kind of thing isn't unprecedented on television. Hell, the Simpsons couch gag is an American institution, but it's not something that you see at all on Japanese TV. So it's that much more surprising and hilarious when it does happen here. And Gintama is really the only anime that could make it happen. The show has one hell of a legacy at this point, and has been permitted by fans and network executives alike to get away with, well, just about anything, from making gags out of its own budget shortfalls and missed deadlines, to spending 10 minutes on a depressing short story about a dead dog. And with the clout that they have, they managed to pull off a gag that elevates this OP from being great to being absolutely legendary. Closely related to the comedic OP is the OP that simply wants to make you feel good inside and put a smile on your face, while making the show's characters seem as likable as possible. These are the OPs that you see out in front of breezy comedies, romantic dramas, and other shows that have a more laid-back attitude. I'm talking about the first intros to Toradora, Cardcaptor Sakura, and The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, the zany openings to My Little Monster, The Eccentric Family, and Kare Kano, OPs that celebrate the satisfaction of a job well done, like Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun and Barakamon, and the upbeat songs about how great it is to have someone to love that lead into the likes of Ore Monogatari, Sweetness and Lightning, and Usagi Drop. There are OPs that get you singing, like K-On!, Poco's Udon World, and Flying Witch, or even dancing along, like Lucky Star. And then there are the shows that are a little less focused on happy-go-lucky stuff, that nonetheless raise your spirits with their OPs, like Mahoromatic, Zatch Bell, and occasionally Monogatari. These OPs excel at making you like them as much as you like the characters, so I'm sure all of you have one that you're fond of and you want to see on this list. But for my 8th slot, I'm gonna be a little selfish and pick one of my personal favorite OPs. Itsuka no Ikutsuka no Kimi to no Sekai from Bokura wa Mina Kawaiso, which is maybe the most Japanese that I've ever had to say in one sentence on this channel. Wait, no, I covered Anohana. Definitely was Anohana. There's a lot of stuff to love about this OP, gorgeous artwork and a great song being the immediate standout features. It also makes an effort to present all of its characters in ensemble shots, which in my opinion is the best way to go about it. You can learn a lot more about someone by seeing how they bounce off their friends as opposed to just looking at them posing alone in front of a gradient background. There are also some strong gags with quick setups and punchlines strewn throughout the OP, which some might argue makes this OP more comedy-oriented, but the actual climax is all about being uplifting and heartwarming. Lines of text rain down around Ritsu as she walks home reading one of her books. Usa goes to cover her with an umbrella, but then we step inside her head and everything extraneous is blown away. We see her transforming into characters from the books fluttering all around her, experiencing secondhand how immersed she gets in these stories. Reading Rainbow wishes it was this wondrous and enticing. The whole cast comes together for an adorable variation on the JoJo lineup, and there's this heartwarming, peaceful moment where Ritsu is absorbed in her book and Usa is gazing wistfully at her. Then we see them standing in the hallway, and their clothes are replaced with outfits from the novel Ritsu is reading, hinting that she's slowly letting him into her world. This OP manages to capture aspects of romance, friendship, comedy, and the power of reading all at once. I can watch it over and over, and no matter how many times I do, it still makes me smile ear to ear every time the music picks up. That's why it earns this slot. On the flip side of OPs that want to make you smile, you have the ones that aim to evoke a powerful mood. That mood could be simple and serene like Kisniver, Yuri on Ice, Kino's Journey, and Mushishi, or complex and oppressive like Monster, Higurashi, Re:Zero, and Ghost in the Shell Second Gig. These are the OPs that thrive on intense emotions. You see them in front of more dramatic romance shows like Anohana, Romeo x Juliet, Your Lie in April, and the second half of Toradora, evoking a sense of melancholy and nostalgia. That's also the feeling that you get with Kyoso Giga. I'm especially fond of the OPs that make me uneasy, be it subtle like with the sinister subtext of Gankutsuo's OP, or more overt like my number 7 pick, Paranoia Agent. Satoshi Kon was an unparalleled genius, and as it's his only directorial work for television, there is truly nothing else like Paranoia Agent. I could talk at length about the show's surrealist take on the human condition, and perhaps I will one day, but for now, let's focus on the masterful OP. Set to Dream Island Obsessional Park by Susumu Hirasawa, this OP takes us on a whirlwind tour of humanity through the lens of senseless tragedy, much like the show itself. And in the foreground of all of these terrible scenes, we see our principal cast laughing uncontrollably. It's an OP fueled by contrast, the juxtaposition of the jovial characters against increasingly morbid backdrops, and of this unnerving imagery against the epic, sweeping backing track. You could say it's nonsensical, the essence of insanity, but there's a definitive message behind it. That message is that humans thrive on denial. We'll do anything we can to laugh in the face of adversity, and ultimately, if the final image of the OP is any indication, that might be what kills us. The last election certainly makes a good case for that. The OP leaves us on this haunting shot of an old man, an observer who seems to sit outside the bounds of the show's world, laughing as humanity nukes itself into oblivion. It's truly provocative stuff and perfectly in step with the tone and themes of the show. This OP, like Paranoia Agent itself, is brilliant. Most OPs focus on the shows that they're attached to, but at number 6, we're celebrating the ones that immerse us in their respective show's subject matter. These OPs are less about the characters and more about the things those characters are obsessed with. You see these in front of just about every sports anime, from Hajime no Ippo to Haikyuu, and shows that use sports anime formulas are no exception. The OPs for Shokugeki no Soma and Yakitate Japan show an abiding love of cooking. Heck, see The Money of Soul and Possibility Control opens with a heartfelt love letter to currency. Planetes and Space Brothers show us how cool the history of space travel is, and while Silver Spoon is more down-to-earth, it's no less passionate about farming. This could go to Shirobako for celebrating the creation of art, or Princess Jellyfish for how it revels in the finished pieces, but there are few art forms that can quite match the raw, passion that goes into rock and roll, and while Nana comes close, nothing shows that quite as effectively as Hit in America, the opening to Beck Mongolian Chop Squad. As the name suggests, this OP takes us on a raucous road trip across America with the titular band Beck and the dog that is their namesake. The whole OP is framed as a tour video, cutting between shots of the band singing and the various locales that they visit. Care is taken to make the whole thing look as though it were filmed. It introduces us to the characters in candid, documentary-style shots that tell us a lot about their individual personalities, as well as how they play off each other. Hit in America does a great job of getting us acquainted with and invested in its cast in the most rock and roll manner possible. It captures the roots and the power of the genre, and even the fleeting yet overwhelming sensation of a great live performance, all while foreshadowing events to come. And spectacular direction aside, more than maybe any other song on this list, it gets me singing and clapping and banging my head along to the beat every time I hear it. This OP rocks. Plain and simple. Speaking of rock, the place that you're most likely to hear it in anime is out front of big, dumb shonen action series. And for our 5th place slot, we're celebrating one of the biggest and dumbest. Shonen OPs excel at getting you hyped. They might come packed with references like the intros to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, or they might be a reference in themselves, like how Baccano's intro parodies Snatch. But at the end of the day, their purpose is to get you stoked to watch some fights, or card games, or sports matches, depending on the show. Japan has had a long time to perfect this particular art form, going back from One Punch Man to Yu Yu Hakusho and Dragon Ball, and even further to classics like Gundam and Fist of the North Star. There are shonen OPs that can get you humming along with a few guitar licks, like HT from Trigun, and others that get you tapping your feet to the beat, like the opening to Pokemon X, Y, and Z. And of course, there are plenty that can get you singing, like Attack on Titan or Seven Deadly Sins. But no matter how they grab you, once they've got you, these OPs take you for a ride. From Inuyasha to Maji to Yatterman Night, the best shonen OPs know how to put you on an emotional roller coaster and spit you out craving more. As you might expect from their monumental success, the so-called Big Three anime all mastered this aspect of their marketing. There are enough great openings for Naruto and One Piece to fill several huge lists, and I may make at least one pretty soon, if you guys are interested. But ironically, it's the worst of the big shonen anime that sells itself with the best opening. Bleach is really, really bad. Like, even when it was good, it wasn't that good. It takes a heck of a lot to sell a show this bad, but damn, did they ever sell it with Asterisk. Bleach's first opening presents us with a slick, stylish, intriguing show that's nothing like what we actually got, and it does so with impeccable style. You guys should know by now that I'm a big fan of creative credits integration and kinetic typography, and in this regard, Asterisk outshines almost every other OP on the market. Every title is presented in a new, fun way that immediately catches your eye and entices you to read it, if you can read moon runes, that is. And the animation and editing that underlies this presentation is remarkably solid. The OP shifts fluidly between disparate visual styles, held together by a loose motif of damaged video equipment, film out of alignment, videotape noise, and paint on the camera lens, and an improvisational hip-hop undercurrent. And when I say this editing is impressive, I mean it. The OP's director knows just how to pull your eyes around the screen to catch your attention, and it's kind of mind-blowing just how well this fast rap syncs up with this slow, methodical sword fight. The OP is even creative in how it uses and contextualizes sounds from the song itself, turning drum snares into lens flares, cymbal taps into footsteps, and a guitar wail into a pained scream from Kone. This OP isn't just in sync with its music, it draws from it to create its imagery. There's nowhere this point is more apparent than in the final image, which aligns the show's characters on what looks like an album cover. In most cases, I'd be bothered by the lack of narrative cohesion, but in this OP, it's like the animators just closed their eyes and let the music speak to them, and it just works. There's a different, more ephemeral kind of coolness that comes from pure style. Some might say style over substance, but that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. For my number 4 spot, I'm honoring the OPs that are a true treat for the senses. Those Mad World OPs that I've mentioned before are pretty common, but I can't deny how well they work for the likes of Makaku City Actors, Gangsta, and Psycho-Pass. And when you add just a bit more color, you get something really impressive, like the wild, sketchy opening to Drifters. Then there are the OPs that take your breath away with novel animation techniques, like those seen in The Perfect Insider, Gatchaman Crowd's Insights, and EF, A Tale of Memory. Actually, you could fit pretty much any Shaft series into this category. It's sort of what they do. And of course, you can toss any Masaki Yuasa show into the running for this one as well. Kaiba, Tatami Galaxy, and Ping Pong the Animation all feature openings that are stunning in their own right. And speaking of Ping Pong, this spot ends up going to the similarly stylized first opening of an all-time classic, Great Teacher Onizuka. Both GTO OPs deserve recognition. The second one's trippy vision quest is gripping, and its animation is almost pure Sakuga from beginning to end, but sometimes less is more. The series' first opening, set to the infectious beat of Driver's High by L'Arc-en-Ciel, uses only black and white, with the exception of some gaudy title sequences, to paint a vivid picture of the series' title character, a Kichi Onizuka. Through unconventional shot composition and clever editing, the OP manages to capture how inherently cool Onizuka is without shying away from what a doofus he can be at the same time. I mean, the introductory shot of the OP is a toilet being flushed to the sound of a revving motorcycle. The OP makes use of two very striking effects. By emulating a fisheye lens, it places emphasis on Onizuka's larger-than-life personality and the way he commands the attention of those around him. And most noticeably, by stripping the image of all color, it creates an atmosphere of oppressive summer heat that speaks to Onizuka's passion and intensity, as well as his sexual frustration. Like him, by the end of the OP, we're left feeling like we need to take a soak and cool off. If the OPs I just mentioned could be accused of putting style over substance, then the opposite charge could be levied against our third place entry, which puts a spotlight on the OPs that use symbolism to create a sense of anticipation and mystery. And while something shallow like Ergo Proxy might do a passable job of making itself seem intriguing by layering on the symbols, you'll find much more substance in shows like Tokyo Ghoul with its repeated use of reflections, Sangatsu no Lion with its underwater doors, or Steins Gate with its ever-present clocks. If a show is really ballsy, like Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei, it can use the barrage of imagery to hide a massive spoiler right in the heart of the OP. I've previously covered 5 particularly great examples of this. Welcome to the NHK, Erased, Death Note, Shiki, and Spice and Wolf are all deserving of praise, but I've gotta put an absolute classic above the lot of them. Serial Experiments Lane. Kicking off with an unnerving English voice declaring, "Present day, ha ha! Present time, ah ha 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 ha!" This OP makes a point from the get-go of trying to get you off your game. Before the OP proper even starts, you're greeted by a faded image of Lane staring back at you from within your TV, watching you like she does the rest of the characters we're about to see. The image is pretty clear in HD, but in SD broadcast quality on an old CRT, it's just faded enough to make you think your mind is playing tricks on you when you see it. That's not the last time this OP will make you think, did I really just see that? But mind games aren't all Lane has up its sleeve. This OP showcases some great animation and incredibly strong editing, along with a haunting, powerful folk theme that sticks with you just as strongly as that creepy laugh from the beginning. The imagery of Lane wandering through the Wired is some of the most striking you'll see in any anime opening out there. Scenes like her whispering to a child playing a video game or walking through a world frozen in time stay in your mind long after the episode proper has wrapped. Lane's OP intrigues us with a question fundamental to Lane's narrative. Where is the line between the virtual and the real? And as Lane loses herself in the Wired, it makes us lose our own certainty that the line even exists in the first place. It's powerful stuff. the biggest challenges in compiling this list was trying to draw winners from a broad range of sources. I mean that mostly in terms of genre, style, and era, but I also made an effort to acknowledge the work of a broad range of different studios. And to do that, I had to set a hard and fast rule for myself. Studio Bones was only allowed in one category, because they make, like, the best OPs, and if I let them, they'd have a good chance of winning half these categories on their own. I can only properly acknowledge how they set themselves apart from other studios by, well, setting them apart from the other studios. This is a studio that's just as capable of making you crack a smile with something like Ouran or Shirayuki Hime as they are of getting your blood pumping for the likes of Noragami, Darker Than Black, Chaika, or Boku no Hero Academia. A studio that has set a standard of excellence since almost the very beginning with Rajafan, Scrap Princess, The Mars Daybreak, and Wolf's Rain. They know how to go subtle for a series like Tokyo Magnitude 8.0 and over the top for something like Kekai Sensen. The directors of their OPs can even get you stoked to watch a total dud like Gosick, Captain Earth, or Eureka 7 AO, even when you're 10 episodes in and know full well how bad they're going to be. Speaking of Eureka 7, perhaps the most impressive thing about Bones is how they managed to craft a long-running series with OPs that are each more amazing and unique than the last. They blew me away time and again with Eureka 7 and Soul Eater, as well as both iterations of Fullmetal Alchemist. In fact, I was planning on putting Again by Yui in this number 2 spot, surprising no one, and if this video had come out when it was supposed to, I would have. But the really tough thing about making a list like this is that new OPs come out every 3 months, and you run the risk of one being so damn good that you have to change the order of the whole damn thing to accommodate it. 99 by Mob Choir, the opening to Mob Psycho 100, is that damn good. It impresses on every level, with great music, novel animation techniques, solid direction, clever foreshadowing, and more manga references than JoJo, which is a lot of manga references. I simply do not have time in this video to explain all of the reasons that this OP is so great. But fortunately, I just did a What's in an OP episode about it, which I will link in the doobly-doo and at the end of this video. You may have noticed that a few excellent Bones OPs were left out of the honorable mentions for that last entry, and that's because at number 1 we're celebrating the work of a singular director, one whose OPs are only outmatched by the quality of his actual shows. Shinichiro Watanabe. I'd be happy putting just about anything he's worked on in this top slot, from the slow, stirring intro of his directorial debut Macross Plus to the haunting insanity that deceptively leads into his most recent and worst series, Terror in Resonance. Both openings of Space Dandy had me laughing my ass off. And did you know that Watanabe also directed the striking, elegant single-shot intro to Star Driver? Because he did, and that's also great. There's a big part of me that wants to give this to Kids on the Slopes opening, which has me choking back nostalgic tears every time I watch it. That OP has a special place in my heart, especially since it formed the backbone of the original What's in an OP intro. But the competition it faces is too monumental to snub, and it doesn't do anything interesting with its credits, so I have to dock points for that. Ultimately, of course, one of Watanabe's 2 most iconic OPs is going to have to come out on top of this: Cowboy Bebop or Samurai Champloo. One is the most iconic instrumental OP of all time, the other a perfect visual accompaniment to the work of J-Rap god Nujabes. And man, I don't use the word perfect often, but it's the only way to describe the opening to Champloo, a work of visual poetry that transforms a world of wandering samurai into a living hip-hop single, sampling fight animations and telling character moments to paint a vivid picture of its 3 protagonists. Slow and measured yet chaotic and snappy, there's almost no other OP quite like it, which makes it an ideal way to prime yourself for the offbeat, eclectic nature of the show itself. But while Battlecry always gets me in the mood to watch Champloo, Tank is just as inventive and perfectly tailored to Bebop. It's practically impossible to choose between them, but I think Bebop ultimately edges Champloo out through technical superiority. The animation is smoother and weightier, and all the more impressive for being done with cells. and through having more striking, memorable music. Nujabe's verses are genius, but Tank is the very definition of catchy. Hear its theme once and it'll be playing in your head for the next week. And whenever it does, these striking visuals will play alongside it, stuck somewhere between a pop art gallery piece and the intro to a Bond movie. In a distinctly sensational and effortlessly stylish manner, it revels in sex and violence and cool sci-fi shit. Its animation as jazzy, flowing, and punchy as the theme itself. Every shot tells you a bit more about the characters, world, or tone of the show, yet every individual frame could be taken and turned into a perfect wallpaper, assuming you still use a 4x3 monitor. Like the jumbled manifesto scrolling through the background declaring to the world that Bebop will create a new genre, this OP is bold. Loud and bombastic, in a lot of ways it's Shampoo's equal and opposite, but in many subtle ways it impresses just that little bit more. It also leaves an impression in a very overt way. The exhausted, frantic breakdown that leads to the title just sticks with you. So much of this OP just sticks with you. From the music to the inventive animation and cinematography to the bold impression that it leaves in your mind of its four main characters. Bebop was indeed a genre-defining work, and every part of its essence is captured in this OP. It is the perfect sales pitch for a near-perfect anime. And by my estimation, though it has some stiff competition even from its own creator, the single best anime OP ever made. You know, it's kind of funny. Even though this video is coming to you super late, it still feels like I'm making it way too early. When I started this channel, I never expected to make 50,000 subscribers, let alone 100,000 subscribers. And to do that in a year boggles my mind. I'm blown away every time I look at the view count on that SAO video, especially when I think back to a time when I thought that the views on One Punch Man and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure were as good as it was going to get. I'm sitting here holding this plaque in my hands, filming this video on a fancy-ass Canon camera that I bought with ad revenue and the support of my patrons, and I still can't shake the feeling that this is all a dream. It's hard to believe that this is my job now. And that's really just the tip of the iceberg. This channel has introduced me to people who are now some of my best friends. Hell, my best friend in the entire world, my amazing girlfriend Yazi, met me through this channel, and now I'm taking her to Disneyland and Japan with the proceeds. I'm living my actual dream. It's amazing. And I couldn't do any of it without your support. Every one of you who watches my videos with or without ad block, all of the patrons who've given me their love and monetary backing over the last year, and of course all of the friends who've given me advice and help. You helped me get where I am today. Thank you. Thank you all for sticking with me this far. You really are the best fans a guy could ask for. And since I'm feeling all sappy and taking a trip down memory lane already, today I recommend going back to the beginning of the What's in an OP playlist and catching up on some of the videos you might have missed. Or if you want to hear more about the Mob Psycho OP, I guess you could skip to the end of that, or just click on this other annotation here. And if you like those videos, or this one, and somehow you're not subscribed yet, well, shucks. There's buttons for doing that exact thing all over the page. And if you want to go over to my Twitter page at G0FFThu, you can follow me on there too. You know, if you feel like it. Anyway, thanks once again for watching. As always, this is Jeff Thu, professional shitbag, signing out from my mother's basement.